Aaron Pelzer, Pops. Welcome to the Sauce of Life. This show is about people that have taken their life's experiences and turned those into ingredients that they now use to feed others. So with that being said, Pops, Papa P, Aaron Pelzer, introduce yourself to the world.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aaron. Derek called me Papa P. I call myself Smoke Dog Pelzer. I'm a retired soldier from the United States Army after spending 22 years, and I've been with the federal government for 16 years. Why I'm the way I am is because the young man that's here, Derek Green. When I met Derek, I was coming from my time on recruiting duty. And during that time, I was going through a career transition, whether or not I wanted to make it a career or did I want to end my career as a soldier. But when I went to Hawaii, I got this greenhorn named Derek Green who challenged me and made me want to be a soldier again. So for that, I want to say thank you for Derek, not only to him, but the rest of the posse. And here I am.
Wow. You know what's funny is I planned on having you come on here and I'm going to give you your flowers because to the audience, some of y'all have been following me for years and you guys saw when Facebook came up to Alaska and filmed this week-long show that they came up. Well, you guys saw it as a 3-minute video, but Facebook was up here for a week. And in that, I talked about how a JROTC instructor from my hometown looked at me and asked me where was I going in life and realized that I was a young kid without direction. What I didn't do or what wasn't in that Facebook interview was the flowers that belong to this man that you guys are looking at now, Papa P. There's a reason that I call him Pops. My dad has been incarcerated since I was about 5 years old, and he's been in and out of prison. When I joined the military and entered at Schofield Barracks, Hawaii, having just turned 18 years old, the youngest kid in the entire brigade, military police brigade, Hawaii. And this man took me under his wings and shaped me. And I don't know if you remember, Pops, but you pulled me into the day room, or you put me into your office one day. And I remember you dropping this E5. And I was like, man, if he's dropping E5s, I just left basic training. So I'm like, if he's dropping E5s, then I'm in a world of hurt over here. And I remember you asking me something like, why do I choose to be so ignorant? And you said something along the lines of, ghetto isn't a place. It's isn't a place. It's a mindset. And in saying that, ghetto isn't a place. It's a mindset. You began to cause me to think in a different way. And then with constant mentorship between you and Saran Rule, y'all helped shape me into the man that I am today. So I wanted to begin this interview by giving you your flowers, completely not expecting you to come in here and try and give me some. But I want to know, what was it that shaped you as a man to even develop that knowledge and understanding that ghetto is a mindset, not a place?
Well, growing up in New York in the late 70s, early 80s, I had an opportunity to see the good, the bad, and the ugly of living in the ghetto. And one thing I knew is that I didn't want that to be my end game, my story. I come from a long line of leaders. I have a long line of women as well as men leaders, most of them not even my immediate family. And one thing that they always told me was, you keep on living. Don't live for others, live for yourself. And by you living for yourself, if you do it right, you're going to plant seeds in others. And that's what I tried to do. I tried to be the best man that I could be and pass that on to gentlemen like you and others so that we can spread our seed of how we should be as men and as human beings.
Wow. Okay. So mentorship. And
Yes.
then you've gone and you've continued mentoring for the rest of your days as I've known you with the people around you. You're constantly mentoring. And it's humbling, right, to be in your presence, honestly. And it's beautiful at the same time because TD Jakes has a statement, has a quote that says, powerful people see potential in people. And it sounds like the people of your life, the men and the women around you, growing up in New York, 70s and 80s, as you said, they saw potential in you. And you've chosen to give back by seeing the potential in others. One of the things that stands out to me as a young man, as a young soldier, was how you had us doing operation orders, as private first classes. We're E3s in the military, and you have us writing operation orders and executing ops. That development in others, seeing potential in others, what has kept you maintaining that? What causes that within you and keeping that going?
Well, a lot of people like to be graded based off of how they do. I believe in grading myself how others do. I always wanted to make sure that if I wasn't there, you and those under me can continue on. And by doing so, that built confidence not only in you, but it built confidence in others. They will stop asking for me and they will start asking for you. That's me pushing you forward and me taking a step back. It's just like a parent. A parent feeds all that they can in a child, but then at some time, that parent has to step back and that child has to fly. So if you plant those seeds in your children, and I consider you one of my children, you can and you do fly. So that's my pride in knowing that you are flying.
Look at this guy. Man, we're going to be on stage together. Motivational speaking. For the audience, as y'all know, these episodes are never scripted. We literally just start conversations and start talking. So the wisdom that comes out of here, y'all will hear me say often, success leaves clues. Pop, you said something to me when I was 18 years old, along the lines of what just came out of your mouth. You said something to the effect of, I want to be the weakest link in my chain. I want to be the weakest member of my team. And it solidified in my brain. And I spent 21 years in the military with that mindset that I always wanted to be the weakest member of whatever team, whether it was my team, my squad, when I was a platoon sergeant, when I ran physical security for GMD up in Alaska, the missile defense site. I always wanted to be the weakest member of my team. And I credit that directly back to you because it taught me that, one, I have to be aware of myself. And you've always struck me as a man that's very self-aware of your strengths and your weaknesses. And then if you've built everyone else up around you, that they're stronger than you, then you know how great of a team you actually have. Where does your self-awareness come from? Like, is that something that you endured as a child? Was there a certain person in your life, like you mentored me, was there a certain person in your life that instilled that in you?
I would have to say it was my grandparents and my mom. My mom has always been my rock, and she always pushed me to be the best that I could be. My mom was not into any sports whatsoever, but I always excelled in the sports. Why was that? Because she made me be the best that I could be. Far as my grandparents, I was like a sponge when it came to them, in particular my grandfathers. Not growing up with my father around a lot, my grandfather were my role model. And not just that, my uncles. My uncles were like my big brothers, And then my aunts were like my sisters. So having positive role models around me, I had no other choice but to succeed, because in my mind, if I didn't, I would be letting them down. And by letting them down, I'll be letting myself down. So, and then with that, it came to service. My family brought me up into serving others, because by serving others, it will come back to you. By helping others, it will come back to you. And helping others is that, like that saying goes, you teach them how to fish instead of feeding them. That's how my family raised me. They taught me how to fish. And by me knowing how to fish, I passed that on to you to teach you how to fish so you can teach others. Because when you feed people, sometimes you limit them to doing just what you tell them. So that's why I fed you and let you run wherever way you wanted to run. And 9 times out of 10, you hit it right the nail on the head.
Man, you're dropping some some pearls in here. And I'm just like, okay, you're limiting people by what you feed them. You're limiting people by the knowledge and the experiences. This is something, as I mentor now in various groups, I talk about how we are limited by our life's experiences. We're limited by what we know and by what we think we know. Yep. And man, at age 44, as I sit here today, I realize I don't know a lot about anything. So I appreciate that you always challenged us in our younger days, but you still challenge us to this day. You have a birthday coming up, and you told me that you want to run a marathon for your 60th.
Yes.
Like, man, what a goal. What a goal. Why?
Why? Because one of my biggest regrets in life had nothing to do with me professionally or financially. It's dealing with sports. I always had a dream to run in the Olympics. As you know, I was an avid runner, and I allow my environment to keep me from meeting my full potential. And so with that, that's when I came in the military, and I ran you all as much as I did, because I was getting back at myself, but also paying it forward, like I said, teaching you how to fish. Because at the end, I end up being the weakest link. So you guys humbled me with that. But the reason why I want to run a marathon is I have a bucket list where I have 2 more left. That's the Boston and New York. So I need to get a qualifying time so I can do that. Once I do that, I would have hit a marathon on half of the continents on the globe.
Beautiful. You said something that I want to go back to right there. You're talking about running. And as I said in the intro, the sauce of life is about people that have taken their life's experiences and they now give them back to others. They've converted it to food that they use to feed others. Mm-hmm. I never knew that you were an Olympic scale runner. I do know that I used to be so mad at you. Because good God, you would run us to death. And in my later years, I learned to appreciate it, because maybe my audience doesn't know, but I'll just say it here, that because of your leadership and because of the mentality, you shifted my mindset, and you shifted the mindset of all of the soldiers underneath you, that I eventually won military police warfighter, which is something that I'll let you talk about it, being the first to do it, and then me following in your footsteps. You mind speaking on that a little bit?
Yes. Well, back in 1994, the military police corps used to have what they call the NCO of Excellence competition. And at the conclusion of the individual competition, our regimental commander at the time, General Linhart, said that MPs do everything as teams. So he wanted to get a team competition started. So he sat down with our regimental at the time, Regimental Malavet, and all of the NCOs that were there at the time had to develop teams to compete for this inaugural team competition, which later became the Warfighter. So with that, myself and two other gentlemen, we teamed up and we won that competition, which led to your competition that you won, the MP Warfighter.
Going back to the sauce of life thing, looking at the things that you went through as a kid, and then your disappointment or your regret at having not competed in the Olympics or pushed yourself, or you said the environment shaped your decision to not go to the Olympics. And then you go and you train all of us little warriors, little military police warriors, to go out and execute. But it wasn't just about executing, physical fitness or anything like that. The thing that you exercised the most from me was my mindset, the paradigm. I credit my mindset being under your mentorship in my younger days. I can remember running up and down Lyman Road and Coley Pass, up in the mountains. And I'm talking about like cussing you in my head, just mad, and being exhausted and seeing you catching a second wind. And then you do stuff like turn around and start running backwards. And I'm just like, ain't no way I'm gonna let this old dude beat me. But that mindset that you develop helped me become a better leader. So you truly are, in my life, one of the greatest embodiments of what it means to have that sauce of life, to be that person that takes these circumstances from their younger days and then feed it back into the development of others. You said that reciprocation is something that's huge for you, giving back. Right? Is that something that you observed, or is that something that you just learned in your later years? This whole concept of giving back to the community, giving back to the development of others, just giving back.
It was something that I learned as I grew. I always had natural talent. So that's why, in my mind, I should have ran in the Olympics because of my natural talent. And the reason why I give back is I didn't have anyone to challenge me in my natural gifts. So that's why I give back by challenging others, because by building confidence in others, you also build competence in others. So that's why I said that I should have ran in the Olympics. Now, could I have? Maybe, maybe not. But in my mind, that's going to be a dream that I'm going to always keep, and that's going to always push me to be the Smoke Dog.
Smoke Dog. One of the greatest memories I have of you is you and I responding. First of all, that was a great thing, turning confidence into competence. I'm going to have to use that. I'm going to have to borrow that from you.
You got it.
We responded to a call of a suicidal woman that was barricaded.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you tell that story. And then I'll tell you the impact that it had on my life.
Well, one night we was working a midnight shift, and we got a call for an individual that was in crisis. So you and I responded, and we was like, okay, let's go ahead and get in here. So from that point, we went different directions. I think you went up, climbed up the back, came through the window. I came through the bottom, and we met her in the middle. And by the way we did it, we were able to, one, scare her more than anything. And once we scared her, I guess it brought her back to where she can actually function without harming herself or others. And that actually was a good thing that we actually did that, because it was highly likely that she would have harmed herself and others. So
I'm going to tell you, for the audience listening, and that this definitely applies to law enforcement personnel that are listening, because I was just in Washington, D.C. Last week or the week before last, and we were talking about some of the unarmed shootings that have happened, justified shootings. And in today's world, that lady would have caught half a magazine.
Mm-hmm.
But what you told me before going in there essentially is what you just repeated here, that this is a human being in crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And you undertold that story right there. You kind of bum rushed her and grabbed her wrist. And I remember you slamming her wrist against the door frame to knock that knife out of her hand. And she dropped it. And this is when you could truly see that she was just a human being in crisis. Mm-hmm. Her breaking down. And you shaped something in me truly moving forward throughout the rest of my military police career, where it's like, before you pull out that weapon and get ready to end somebody's life, recognize and realize where they actually are and what threat level they truly pose to you, versus just going in like you're some video game thing and you're just popping people, which we were talking in DC about how in many law enforcement agencies now, it seems that people are just waiting to end somebody else's life. Is there someone in your life that taught you to value others or value life at a higher capacity like that, that you looked at that woman and didn't see that she's a knife wielding suspect or subject or perpetrator or whatever term, whatever law enforcement agency wants to use, but you looked at her as a woman in crisis reaching out for help?
Well, I would say, first off, the reason why I went in the way that I did was because of our training. We spent many hours in the pit doing combative training, teaching each other how to disarm individuals. And if you would have, and now that, we have this conversation, I actually can see that woman's eyes. And I could see that she was crying for help. So it was a situation where I had my protective gear. I felt that I could neutralize the situation without causing her any bodily harm. And I knew that you was coming right up there. So it was just a matter of doing what I was trained to do. And who taught me empathy and being mindful and using emotional intelligence was my mom. Because one of the things that my mom would always tell me is, you're not responsible for how people treat you, but how you treat people. And I looked at every situation that I went in. How would I want somebody to treat a family member of mine? How would I want somebody to respond to a situation if I was in crisis? So that's why I did what I did and we did what we did.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it because you put me on a journey where I began to question everything that I had been taught as a young man and in law enforcement also, the different mentalities. In the military, you have so many different leaders. So you're exposed to so many different mentalities, some good, some less than good. Some people are competent and some are grossly incompetent and don't belong in the military. So I'm thankful and grateful that I had you as a leader, truly. But one of the things that you inspired, Pops, was this understanding that I could become the change that I had needed when I was back in Fort Pierce, Florida, in the ghetto. Right? You looking at that woman, and we talked after in the debrief, the AAR, where you're talking about that situation and you're imparting some of the knowledge that you're saying right now to the public, but you were doing that to a very young, shapeable mind as you were talking with me. And it taught me to realize essentially that I can be the change for others that I didn't have in life. And like you just said right there, what happens when you're in distress or you're that person in need and how you want to be treated. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate your mom for teaching you that, you know, impactful, very, very impactful in life. This is actually not a typical interview, believe it or not, because I let people just talk. And here I am asking you all kinds of questions. It's usually like a 90%, 10%, where 90% of it is you, 10% is me asking questions or talking. But man, you've given so much influence in my life and the life of other soldiers around me. Even now, one of the soldiers that I trained came up and somehow you recognize this and that's that person. How has life been for you post-military service, like that transition to civilian life versus being in the military structured life?
Well, I would say that the military prepared me for my life after the military. The foundation that I received, far as being able to teach, coach, and mentor young folks like yourself, has provided me the opportunity to now be able to work in the multiple generations that we have. I'm working with baby boomers down to Gen Ys. If I wasn't in the military, I would not have had a clue on how to lead a civilian workforce like I am right now. So it definitely prepared me. Being able to work with individuals from various parts of society has definitely benefited by me being in the military. Why? Because in the military, we all are green. We are a subset of our communities that we come from, and it's no different being a government employee. It's the same mindset, the same mentality. Now, the one thing that I've had to get used to is how I build camaraderie and esprit de corps. In the military, it just happens. We just do, because we are a part of a fraternity, sorority, and all those good things that build groups of people and cultures. And now bringing it to the civilian side has been a challenge, but it's been a rewarding challenge, because now I use these life lessons in developing my own child.
Pops, you're like a GS Jesus now. Man, I don't even know if they have a scale for you anymore. You seem to always rise to the top. But that's my perception of you, is that you're a person that always rises to the top. Let me ask you, does it ever, and has it ever, what are some examples of when it got hard, where maybe you didn't feel like you were at the top? Or like this statement that I have on the wall over here, I am worthy. There's not a successful person that I've met yet that hasn't had times in their life where they didn't feel worthy or like an imposter for what other people, the perspective that other people showed to them. So have you had that experience in your life? And if you don't mind sharing.
Well, I would say transitioning from being a soldier to now a government employee, it definitely was eye-opening. As you move up in the ranks, a lot of the senior personnel are former officers or individuals who have 3 and 4 degrees and all these things. And I came from the non-commissioned officer corps. I was a sergeant first class. I led from companies down to teams and squads. But I'm now competing with folks who led battalions, brigades, divisions, and all these things that I never did. So now I'm sitting at the table with folks who are now my peers who were previously my leaders. So it's a humbling as well as rewarding experience because, again, I would not be where I'm at today if it wasn't for you and soldiers like you. That's my sauce. That's my sauce, my people, those that are under me. I do what I do for you and others.
And I appreciate that. I want to add that those officers that you're talking about wouldn't be where they are without your influence also. So those colonels, those generals, the private conversations that I've had when I've operated in the rooms of senior leadership, they all had the influence of great NCOs underneath them, great non-commissioned officers underneath them. So I appreciate you sharing that, because there are a lot of successful people that struggle with inadequacy. I'm in a group called World Shakers with Tim Story, and Tim Story is the comeback coach. He's the life coach to so many powerful figures across the planet, not just in Hollywood, all of the celebrities, the stars and stuff like that, but across the planet. And I sit in this room, and sometimes, even though I'm out here impacting lives and changing lives and everything, there's a feeling of inadequacy that comes in sometimes, that creeps in. How do you deal with it when you have those feelings, when you're sitting in a room and you're realizing that if you were still in uniform, you may have been the lowest ranking person in that room, but now sitting in this other room on the other side of that military service, as GS Jesus, these people are answering to you. How do you balance that inadequacy and also balance that power differential? Like, don't let it go to your head.
Like I said earlier, confidence builds competence. I know I belong, so I do belong. So I take and accept my seat at the table with the utmost humble.
I mean, besides you supporting the Knicks, you're a pretty good dude.
Oh, the Mets too. Oh, well, I got it somewhere. I left it outside. Running here, I left it outside.
Oh, them New York. Let me not talk trash because I know nothing about sports at all.
Oh, I got a book right here. You know, the Miracle Mets.
Okay. I have a friend of mine named John Grillo, and John is actually going to come down. He's in New York. He's going to come down to watch a game because I've never been to a professional game.
Really?
You and I were in Hawaii, and they used to have the Pro Bowl over there all the time. We used to get tickets to it, but I never went to a game. So I've never actually seen. I played football in high school, but I've never been to a professional baseball, basketball, football game. So John's going to go with me. I would love to have you there too, because he's a big New York fan, and he was talking about the Mets today.
Well, if it's a Subway Series, I plan on hopefully getting to get one of those games.
What does that mean, a Subway Series?
If the Mets and the Yankees make it, they call it a Subway Series. The American League is the Yankees. The National League is the Mets.
Where'd your love of sports come from? I'm surrounded by men that love sports. Y'all know all these stats and who played where. Where does that come from?
For me, it was my out. Back in growing up in New York, we had what we call the Police Athletic League. And that was an area, a location that was our safe place where kids from the neighborhood can go play sports. It's like a Y.
Okay.
And kids from the neighborhood could actually go and participate in sports. It was a safe place to keep us from being out there in the streets. So doing that, I became fond of running. And then after becoming fond with running, I was a small kid, so I wanted to play. I was in my mind, I was a football player, but I always knew my niche would be track and field. So my grandfather, he was into sports. My dad was a boxer. My uncles were in racing and baseball. So I just naturally migrated over to whatever was the flavor for the day. So, but I'm ultimately a track fan. That's my thing, track and field.
Okay. Who are your people today when it comes to track? Do you watch the Olympics?
I would say, far as the Olympics, I would say now it's Bo. I'm a middle distance runner. So Bo, she didn't make it. It's 800 meter.
Okay.
Anything 1500 on up, I enjoy. The sprints, I wish I could sprint. So I'm very fond of the sprinters out there, all of them, whether it's on the women's side or the men's side. I'm just a fan. I'm not an individual fan. I'm just a fan of the sport in general.
You know what, you mentioned running, and I just had a thought that I hadn't, thought about since I was a kid. I remember us being on a run, and the battalion sergeant major was running with, I think his name was Martinez.
Mm-hmm.
But the battalion sergeant major was running with us, and he was a quick little dude. I mean, he's just smoking us. And I remember you running up alongside me, and you told me to go get him or something like that. Like, don't let him beat you back to building 3004. And I remember just going all out, to go catch him. And what you had just done was set me up for greatness in the eyes of the sergeant major. You didn't run with me, although you could have whipped right past me because you were faster than I was. You allowed me to go out there. Here's one of the fastest people in the battalion. And you told me to go catch him, like go pass him. Don't let him beat you back. And from there, he recognized something in me, and you had me start going to boards and all of these different things. And that began this series of elevation. Going back to what I said before about how you shifted my mindset. You shifted not just that, the perspective of how I see myself. So I literally hadn't thought about that, Pops, in all this time. But I appreciate that. And I never recognized that moment for what it was until you just said that. So that's kind of cool. Anyway, that had nothing to do with the interview. I just had that, and I just wanted to push that out there, how you set me up for success by making me go burn my lungs up to catch that sergeant major. What's next for you? What do you? Okay, so the Olympics, yeah, that part is gone, and you said that's the thing that you regret. So that's okay to be a man that has one regret in life. What's next for you?
What's next for me is to be the best dad and husband that I can be. That's next. That's next. You got me thinking basketball. That's next.
Man, what a goal. What a goal and what an achievement. What else do you want to add to this conversation? Or is there anything that you hoped to bring to light in this conversation today? I want to make sure that you have the ability to talk and share your truths.
I think, one, we as a community, I'm talking all people, need to communicate. Be your authentic self and meet people where they are. Build them up. Do not be afraid to succeed, and do not be afraid to fail. The squeaky wheel gets the all. So say it.
This is a great platform for me, Pops, because I'm blessed to be able to interview what we call world shakers like you. These people that exist, and sometimes in private rooms or quiet spaces, and sometimes in public spaces, but they give back and they reshape communities. And you just mentioned community there. And right now, I feel like this country is the most divided I've ever seen it.
Yes.
Based on everything that's happening in the political spectrum, based on what happens with all of the racial divides, based on people's life choices or life decisions and things that are happening in the world. So I appreciate those words where you're trying to bring people back together.
Yes.
It takes people like you and me and others that are willing to essentially be apolitical and stand in the breach to bridge those gaps right now, because if not, it kind of scares me where this country can head. January 6th to me was a wake up call. Not that I want to go take either side of it. I have an opinion. I'll keep it myself. But that this beautiful thing that we call democracy is more fragile than we realize. And you're there in the heart of it. You're in Virginia, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, I appreciate that sentiment from you. I have something that I do at the end of the podcast, 2 questions to actually close out the podcast. First is to let people know, for you to let people know if they want to get in contact with you. Do you have any mentoring programs? Do you have any books that you've written? Do you have a podcast of your own? Or how would they be able to access you if they chose to access you?
If they chose to access me, I'm not into social media. I'm old school. I am barely, actually, you know what? For you, I would use my email. How about that? That would be Knickerbocker. That's KNICKER, B as in boy, OCHER @hotmail.com.
That email address is about as old as I am.
Exactly. Exactly. So for you, I will communicate.
I appreciate that. Because you have this ability to see greatness in people.
Yes.
And there are people out there at higher echelons that may decide to reach out to you, and you never know.
That's right.
I'm sure you've done it also, but
Yes.
giving counsel to former colonels, giving counsel to former generals and stuff like this, former sergeant majors, people that we looked up to, but maybe they haven't figured out how to put things together post-military service, or they're getting ready to retire and they don't know where to go. So I appreciate you being open to that, because I know you're a very private man. But I do remember that email address is probably the oldest email address that I know.
Yeah.
Knickerbocker at hotmail.com. The second part of this, Pops, if this were the last time that you and I spoke, or if it is the only time that someone in this audience gets to hear your voice, what is it that you want them to walk away with?
I want them to know that this young man here is the son that I never had, and that I love him with all my heart.
This guy. Brother, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. And that means an absolute lot. As you know, my dad is likely to die in prison. And I appreciate, success leaves clues. And for those people that are looking at me as this successful entity, please understand that I'm where I am in life today because this man decided to adopt me at barely over 18 years old and maintain that influence throughout the rest of my days. So for those of y'all that are struggling with something and trying to find purpose and direction in life where you don't know where you are headed, find a mentor. Find somebody that has already been where you're trying to go to.
Yes.
And allow that person to help shape and coach you for the rest of your days. Pops, I truly appreciate this. It's been an absolute honor. Thank you for your time.
Hey, you're welcome. Take care, son. Love you guys.